This is the Content Marketing Podcast, episode number 217, 7 Ways to Boost Your Online Authority. Hello and welcome to the Content Marketing Podcast. This is the show where we help you grow your tribe and your bottom line through insanely good content. I'm your host, Rachel Parker of Resonance Content Marketing, and today is March 9th, 2017. Hello, or as we say in Texas, howdy, or howdy y'all if you want to be real formal. And thank you for joining us for today's episode of the Content Marketing Podcast. Just a reminder, this podcast is available on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play Music. So if you like what you hear, feel free to click on over and subscribe. Also, I invite you to download our complimentary ebook, Top 10 Reasons Why Your Social Media Sucks. To grab your free copy, you will learn the top 10 mistakes that businesses make on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and other social networks, and learn easy turnaround tips for each situation. To grab your free copy, go to resonancecontent.com/resources, and you will find it. You'll find the link right there on the page. Okay, I want to repeat my message out to my brethren in the healthcare industry here in the States. I will be speaking at the Social Media for Healthcare Marketing Conference in Washington, D.C. on March 20th. Specifically, I'll be leading a 2-hour workshop on creating audience personas. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to share some great information. So if you are planning to attend, let me know. Hit me up on Twitter at Rach Parker. Maybe we can sync up for coffee during one of the breaks. And if you want to know more about the event, go ahead and tweet me as well. I would share the URL with you, but it's too long to share here. So better if you just tweet me and I will be happy to share that link with you. Hey, Sophie. Sophie came to visit us. Okay, last week we brought back one of our most popular guests. Frank Dana joined us again to talk about Snapchat, Instagram stories, and how social media marketers are ruining social media. If you happen to miss that episode, feel free to check it out on iTunes or Stitcher or SoundCloud or via the RSS feed. Today we turn our attention to the big A. No, I'm not talking about the scarlet letter. I am talking about authority. We'll talk about why authority in content marketing is more important than ever, and we're going to share 7 ways to boost your own authority through your blog, social media, and other venues. But first, it's time to check in with our news feed for this week's rundown of news you can use. It's been a while since Facebook broadened the like feature to include reactions, and this would be love, haha, wow, sad, and angry, those different options that you get when you go to react to a post. And now it's ranking these reactions higher than likes. Facebook announced that reactions, quote, will now affect post ranking slightly more than likes in the newsfeed algorithm because it's discovered that reactions are what it calls an even stronger signal when it comes to indicating what content users would like to see. Facebook also said that all reactions, including temporary ones that they create, like for Mother's Day, for example, they will continue to be weighed equally to one another. So, love is not going to be worth more than angry. By the way, they did reveal that the love heart is by far the most popular reaction, consisting of more than half of them, just in case you wanted to know that. Also some news out of Medium. Medium has rolled out a new feature called Series. It's a new Series tab on its apps, which features, quoting here, mobile stories that can be added to over time and unfold card by card with the tap of your finger. With this new storytelling format, users have a new way to read on Medium that's both seamless and serialized, again, quoting from their press release here, and you can now tell deeper, more meaningful stories that develop over time on the platform. The new Series tab is available now on most updated versions of Medium's iOS and Android apps, and, quoting again here, will include stories from the creators you follow on Medium as well as ones featured by its editorial team. Now I went to the app on my iPhone, and the series feature, can I just say, this is the Snapchatization of Medium. It really is. You tap on it, like I tapped on a series from the Washington Post about Syria, and it's like you tap on it and you get the opening photo, and you tap again and you get a couple of paragraphs, and you tap again and you get maybe a photograph and then another photograph and then another couple of paragraphs, and it's almost exactly the same type of experience as we're seeing on Snapchat and also Instagram stories. Little bite-sized bits delivered one at a time. So it's interesting to see Medium roll into that. Now, it's not disappearing content as far as I know, but the experience is very similar to what we're seeing on Snapchat and Instagram stories. I thought that was quite interesting. Okay, our content hit of the week is a post by Neil Patel on the Quick Sprout blog. He always has great stuff to share. And this post is called 5 Ways to Amplify the Reach of Your Content Without Spending a Dime. Doesn't that sound nice? So as the content universe becomes more and more crowded, it's becoming more of a struggle to cut through the noise and make ourselves heard. And we're going to talk about that when we talk about authority here in a few minutes. But what I love about Neil is that he really goes deep. He doesn't share the same tired old advice that you see everyone see. Choose topics that are relevant to your audience and publish quality content and blah, blah, blah. In this post, he shares 5 interesting, unique insights to help you amplify your content without having to resort to paid promotions. And it's all backed by data from his own experience. He really goes into, here's what we tried on this blog post, and here's what worked and what didn't. So he's really got the information to back up what he's talking about. Great stuff, as we have always expected from Neil. And I will, of course, share the link in the blog post for today's episode. Title again is 5 Ways to Amplify the Reach of Your Content Without Spending a Dime by Neil Patel on the Quick Sprout blog. That's it for this week's update. If you stumble across something you think would be of interest to your fellow content marketers, please tweet it to me at @RachelParker so that we can share. Now it's time for this week's Spotlight segment, 7 ways to boost your online authority. One of my favorite books, one of my favorite non-marketing books that has helped me understand content marketing on a whole new level is Robert Cialdini's classic called Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion. So Cialdini was a psychologist studying, I think the book came out in the 70s maybe. I know the photos look a little 70s. But anyway, he set out to understand the psychological factors behind persuasion, why some people and some movements and some activities are highly successful in persuading people to decide one way or another on a certain topic, and others not at all. And what he did is he narrowed it down to 6 factors. Now, I'm not going to go into all 6 here. By the way, I highly recommend you pick up a copy of the book. It really is very eye-opening. But one of those factors that he highlights is authority. So Cialdini posits that when people perceive that a message is coming from a person or a group who has authority, they're much more likely to be persuaded than if it's coming from an average Joe or Jane. And what he does is he tells the story of a disturbing experiment that took place years ago. It's called the Milgram experiment, Milgram, after the psychologist who conducted it. And I won't go into detail, but basically it involved participants in this study willingly inflicting what they perceived to be unspeakable pain on another subject simply because they were encouraged to do so by a person in authority. In this case, the lab coat-clad research director who carried the all-important clipboard. And if you read it, it's really very disturbing, but it really shows the extent to which people will make decisions that they would not normally make because of the suggestions of a person they perceive to be an authority. And Cialdini goes on to discuss how really in detail how powerful the perception of authority can be in people's decision making. And it goes back to childhood. When you're a little baby, when you're a toddler, you don't have any personal experience to rely on in making the little toddler decisions that you make every day. So you have to rely on the authority figures in your life to make the decisions that keep you safe and happy. Mom and dad say, don't touch the hot stove, don't touch the hot stove, don't touch the hot stove. And finally you touch it and you get burned. And that tells you, maybe they're right about other things. So I'm digressing here a little bit. The point is that authority is a key factor in the psychology of persuasion. It's why brands hire celebrity spokespeople for their commercials. It's why toothpaste say 4 out of 5 dentists recommend this brand or that brand. It's why many gurus will give you a list of the blue chip publications they've been quoted in, or the network TV shows that they've been interviewed on. It's why we put our degree letters at the end of our names in our LinkedIn profiles. All of those come down to tapping into the power of authority. So why should we content marketers care? Well, I'm going to tell you why authority is especially critical in today's environment. Back in the day, I mean maybe 20, 25 years ago, mass communications was in the hands of the mass media. Regular people, you and I, we got our information from newspapers, TV, radio, book publishers, etc. And each of these entities was highly selective in the voices that they chose to speak to you. So in order to write for a newspaper, you had to have your degree in journalism. You had to have certain credentials. You had to be hired and beat out other applicants for the position. And the same with TV and radio. Also book publishers. You back in the day, you had to have a publisher. Self-publishing did not exist. So fast forward to today, and we live in a world where anybody can publish a blog, publish a book, can have their own YouTube channel, and yes, even host a podcast. Now, this is wonderful in terms of the democratization of mass communication, but it does raise a key question, and that is, how do we know whom to trust? How do we know when we hear a message from this person that we can have confidence that it's right, that it's accurate, and that we can use that information as a basis for our decision making? Basically, these days, authority can't be assumed. It has to be earned. You can't just go out there and start creating content and assuming people will trust you as an authority. We've got to earn that trust. We've got to show people that we do have authority, that we do know what we're talking about, and that they can confidently use the information that we share to make decisions in their daily lives. So I want to move on to talking about 7 ways to boost your own authority, to boost your online authority in your blog, on your social media posts, anywhere you have a footprint in this wonderful, crowded, noisy content marketing universe. The first way to boost your authority is it's a simple one. It's be consistent. And it's interesting because another of the principles that Cialdini posits in his book is the principle of commitment and consistency. That when we are committed and consistent, people are more likely to be persuaded by what we have to say. And really, by being consistent in your blogging, in your social media, it shows that you're serious about your mission to share insightful, relevant content. And if you're producing that quality, rich, relevant content on a regular basis, if you're consistent about it, people are much more likely to see you as an authority and to trust what you have to say. The second thing we can do, by the way, these are in no particular order, just the order they popped into my noodle, is to conduct original research. Now, this is something that a lot of people shy away from. But if you think about it, anybody can cite someone else's research. I can quote the results from Content Marketing Institute's B2B study all day long, but it takes a real authority to go out there, do your own research, and report back the results. It really takes you up to a new level in terms of the authority that people perceive you to have. Now, original research, yes, it does take time. It takes effort. But with the tools we have available today, it is possible, even for down-home content creators like you and me. And, I was thinking about way, way back in the history of this podcast, and it goes back to episode 23, where I interviewed Tony Wright of IMC about some original research that they had done, that he and his team has done, and I believe they used Google surveys, and he shares a little bit of their experience in that interview. So if you want to learn more about original research, dig up episode 23 of the Content Marketing Podcast. You can't even find it on iTunes anymore. You'll have to go to Libsyn and dig it up in the archive. If you need the link, let me know. But it is possible to conduct original research. Now, of course, we have to align with the principles of quality research. We need to have a good sampling. We need to make sure we're choosing the right people. We need to have a large enough sampling to be able to draw conclusions. There are several principles that we need to abide by. So, and there is a lot of information out there. So, if you're interested in conducting original research, I really encourage you to look for the resources that are available and to take it up, do your own research, publish a white paper with the findings, share the findings on your blog, on social media. You really will have a rich resource to draw upon, and it's going to do wonders for your online authority. The third thing that we can do is publish long-form content. Authorities write long stuff, for lack of a better way of phrasing it. Really, I mean, if you think about the authorities in your industry, they didn't become authorities by publishing tweets. Or if they did, that's very rare. They did it by doing in-depth conference presentations, by writing books, by writing research studies, by sharing the really in-depth knowledge. So, I'm not saying write more words to write more words, obviously, and we've talked a little bit about long-form content on this podcast in the past, but do put the time and effort into creating meatier, more comprehensive posts that really put your expertise on display and really show people that your stuff. And people always say, well, what about Seth Godin? He writes blog posts that are 200 words and he gets tons of shares. Well, I'm sorry, Pumpkin, you're not Seth Godin. So, he's been able to make that work. But for most of us, we really need to dig deep and really publish those more in-depth pieces that show people we know our stuff and that they can trust in our expertise and our insights. Number 4 in our list of ways to boost your online authority is to write evergreen content. Now, newsjacking is great. It's wonderful to tap into the big issues of the day. But, if that's all you do, if all you're doing is reacting to what's going on in the world, people might wondering what you actually stand for. So what evergreen content does is it highlights your specific area of expertise and, of course, boosts your authority quotient. So, we need to not only be, from my own example, I need to be writing not only about, Snapchat versus Instagram and how that duel is going to work out. But I also need to be publishing things like the ebook that I mentioned earlier, Top 10 Reasons Why Your Social Media Sucks. And evergreen content, number one, it's going to do wonders for your search because you are covering topics that are timeless. So whether someone goes searching for it today or 6 months from now or 3 years from now, that content is still going to be relevant. And it's also, again, it's going to help boost your authority because you're sharing your expertise in those questions that are basic, that are timeless. So think about white papers, think about ebooks, think about how-to guides, think about the questions and the challenges that come up year after year that you can help your audience with. And by publishing that evergreen content, you're going to help increase your authority quotient. Number 5 on our list of ways to boost your online authority is to tap into the experts in your field. One very effective practice, and this is one that I have not done myself, but is to send out a question to your favorite industry experts. Maybe pick 20 experts to poll and pose a question that is particularly relevant to your industry, and then compile their responses into a single authoritative post. So, sometimes on Social Media Examiner, they'll say, top top social media tips from 20 of the biggest experts. And they'll go out and they'll talk to, Mari Smith about Facebook, and they'll talk to Joe Polizzi. They'll talk to the cream of the crop in that industry and share the insights that they chose to submit to participate. And so what you're doing when you do those posts is you're grabbing onto the coattails of the cream of the crop of your industry, and you are relating their expertise to yours. Number one, you know who they are and knew enough to reach out to them. And number two, they have agreed to participate in your project to help you create this post. So those two factors, if I was able to, well, for example, when I interviewed Joe Polizzi on the podcast a couple of times, people looked at that and says, "Oh wow, she got Joe Polizzi for an interview," and that upped my authority. It connected me to Joe's authority, and also, when you tap into experts, you're not only sharing your own perspective, you're positioning yourself as a connector. As not just, I'm going to pick up this megaphone and tell you what I have to say, but it's like, oh, here's what expert one has to say. Here's what expert two has to say. And if these are the people that people in your audience are also seeing present at conferences, if they're also following their blogs, et cetera, then that is going to do wonders to boost your own authority in terms of your online content. Number 6, put your own spin on industry topics. Part of being authority is having a point of view. So instead of just telling your audience what's going on in your industry, what things they need to be aware of, give your 2 cents. Go the extra mile. Give them your perspective on the issue. Here's why I think this happened. Here's how I think it's going to affect us today. And here's how I think it's going to affect us in the future. And that's much more likely to again, to boost your authority. People are going to see that you're not just parroting back what's in the news, that you are applying your experience, your expertise, what you know from just being who you are, and helping them better understand what is going on rather than just sharing that news. And so it's going to man, just lost my train of thought there. It shows you that you have a point of view, and that they can trust what you say, and and it demonstrates your interest in their understanding and not just their knowledge. So the next time you report on an industry topic, see what you can do to put your own spin on it. And this is a great opportunity to tap into the subject matter experts in your organization and have them contribute and maybe even include a quote from them. And then finally, number 7, be selective in your own sources. The sources that you tap into, the third-party content that you share on social media, the people that you interview on your podcast, the people whose blogs you quote in your own content. Be selective. You want to only cite reputable sources and only quote bona fide thought leaders. And this is a topic that actually came up in my interview with Frank Dana last week. We had this situation where one blog quotes a statistic, and that source, they refer back to another blog, which refers back to another blog, which refers back to another blog, which refers back to another blog that has no citation whatsoever. So it's like, okay, where did someone actually do the research, or did someone just come up with this information and put it out there? So be very selective in whom you quote. And if you quote, if you quote an insight or a statistic or anything that you got from another blog, track it back to the original source, the original research, or the original insight, and get back to that trustworthy source. It's a small, no, it's not a small thing. We need to be selective in who we hang out with, right? And whose expertise we share as we are sharing those different voices. So to boost your online authority, we need to be selective in the sources that we use to cite and also to share on social media and our other venues. So those are 7 ways that you can boost your online authority for your brand. If you have any questions or want to add to the conversation, feel free to hit me up on Twitter at Rach Parker. Now it's time for our content marketing tip of the week. Okay, I guess my first tip of the week would be to pick up a copy of Cialdini's book and read it thoroughly. It will open your eyes to a lot of things, not only about content marketing, but marketing as a whole. It's really very, very insightful, despite being many decades old. But I also want to talk about a bonus way to boost your authority. So this would be number 8 on the list. Yes, you get a bonus. And that would be to conduct interviews. Now, we talked about kind of the compiling expert opinion post, but I'm talking about conducting and publishing in-depth interviews with established thought leaders in your industry. And we talked about how you by doing that, you're kind of riding the coattails of their authority and their popularity, and kind of letting that spotlight that you put on them leak over to you a little bit. And interviews are something you can do. You can do them in text format. You can do a text blog post where you just write out this interview with this person. You can do audio interviews, and even if you don't have a formal podcast, you can publish those on sites like SoundCloud. Or you can always do video interviews if you want to do a Google Hangout and record that and then share it via YouTube, put it up on a blog post, et cetera, et cetera. So don't neglect expert interviews in considering those ways to boost your authority. So how do you find these experts? Well, if you're a good content marketer, you should be able to name off the top of your head the top 10 experts in your industry, or at least the top 5. These are people whose blogs your audience reads, whose books they read. These are the people presenting at conferences that your audience presents. I have found some great podcast interviewees just based on people whose conference presentations I enjoyed. So find those experts, choose your subjects carefully. Obviously, you want to have, like we talked about in tip number 7, you want to be careful about whom you select. We need to approach them respectfully. Okay, don't just say, "Hey, I've got this podcast or I've got this blog. Would love to have your insights." Do a little legwork, saying, "Hey, we're doing a lot of content on this issue. Would love to have your insights. Would you be willing to answer some questions in text format, or would you be willing to join me on an audio or video?" So approach them respectfully. Be respectful of their time. Once you have that interview, always conduct yourself professionally. Be on time. If you've scheduled an interview, maybe send them, if you're doing audio or video, send them some questions ahead of time, and give them a deadline where this needs to be done by. If you're doing it via text, really be tip-top, unquestionably professional throughout the whole process. And when the interview is done, when it's published, always send them the link, and always say thank you to your expert interviewees. Okay, campers, that is it for me today. Hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Content Marketing Podcast. If you like what you've heard, feel free to subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher or Google Play Music or via our RSS feed. And if you really like what you've heard, please leave us a quick review on iTunes. I would so appreciate it. Also, remember that my book, The Content Marketing Coach, Everything You Need to Get in the Game and Win, is now available in book and Kindle format on Amazon. To learn more about the book and to download a free chapter, visit contentmarketingcoachbook.com. As you know, I always like to leave you with a quote, and today's comes from the late, great Steve Jobs. He once said, quote, "If you are working on something that you really care about, you don't have to be pushed. The vision pulls you," unquote. Again, this is Rachel Parker with Resonance Content Marketing. Thank you again for listening, and we will see you again next week. Take care.